The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion. In the depth of winter, I finally learned that there was in me an invincible summer. A man without ethics is a wild beast loosed upon this world. Nothing is more despicable than respect based on fear. Blessed are the hearts that can bend, they shall never be broken. Nobody realizes that some people expend tremendous energy merely to be normal. Autumn is a second spring when every leaf is a flower. The struggle itself towards the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. You cannot create experience, you must undergo it. Real generosity toward the future lies in giving all to the present. Freedom is nothing but a chance to be better. He who despairs of the human condition is a coward, but he who has hope for it is a fool. Friendship often ends in love, but love in friendship never. I know of only one duty, and that is to love. The absurd is the essential concept and the first truth. The world is never quiet, even its silence eternally resounds with the same notes and vibrations which escape our ears. As for those that we perceive, they carry sounds to us, occasionally a chord, never a melody. In order to exist, man must rebel, but rebellion must respect the limits that it discovers in its self-limits where minds meet, and in meeting, begin to exist. Truth is mysterious, elusive, always to be conquered. Liberty is dangerous, as hard to live with as it is elating. We must march toward these two goals, painfully but resolutely, certain in advance of our failings on so long a road. But what is happiness except the simple harmony between a man and the life he leads? The welfare of the people in particular has always been the alibi of tyrants. All great deeds and all great thoughts have a ridiculous beginning. Great works are often born on a street corner or in a restaurant's revolving door. We continue to shape our personality all our life. If we knew ourselves perfectly, we should die. A taste for truth at any cost is a passion which spares nothing. An intellectual is someone whose mind watches itself. It is not your paintings I like, it is your painting. We get into the habit of living before acquiring the habit of thinking. In that race which daily hastens us towards death, the body maintains its irreparable lead. There is no fate that cannot be surmounted by scorn. Each generation doubtless feels called upon to reform the world. Mine knows that it will not reform it, but its task is perhaps even greater. It consists in preventing the world from destroying itself. We always deceive ourselves twice about the people we love, first to their advantage, then to their disadvantage. I would rather live my life as if there is a God and die to find out there isn't, than live as if there isn't and to die to find out that there is. Men must live and create, live to the point of tears. You will never be happy if you continue to search for what happiness consists of. You will never live if you are looking for the meaning of life. Those who lack the courage will always find a philosophy to justify it. Beauty is unbearable, drives us to despair, offering us for a minute the glimpse of an eternity that we should like to stretch out over the whole of time. A man's work is nothing but the slow trek to rediscover, through the detours of art, those 2 or 3 great and simple images in whose presence his heart first opened. To be happy, we must not be too concerned with others. Without culture and the relative freedom it implies, society, even when perfect, is but a jungle. This is why any authentic creation is a gift to the future. The only real progress lies in learning to be wrong all alone. Every act of rebellion expresses a nostalgia for innocence and an appeal to the essence of being. A free press can, of course, be good or bad, but most certainly without freedom, the press will never be anything but bad. Integrity has no need of rules. The evil that is in the world almost always comes of ignorance, and good intentions may do as much harm as malevolence if they lack understanding. Basically, at the very bottom of life, which seduces us all, there is only absurdity, and more absurdity, and maybe that's what gives us our joy for living, because the only thing that can defeat absurdity is lucidity. Man is the only creature that refuses to be what he is. The need to be right is the sign of a vulgar mind. Without work, all life goes rotten, but when work is soulless, life stifles and dies. There is no love of life without despair of life. Don't wait for the last judgment, it takes place every day. Without freedom, no art. Art lives only on the restraints it imposes on itself, and dies of all others. It is necessary to fall in love, if only to provide an alibi for all the random despair you are going to feel anyway. The gods had condemned Sisyphus to ceaselessly rolling a rock to the top of a mountain, whence the stone would fall back of its own weight. They had thought with some reason that there is no more dreadful punishment than futile and hopeless labor. Alas, after a certain age, every man is responsible for his face. The modern mind is in complete disarray. Knowledge has stretched itself to the point where neither the world nor our intelligence can find any foothold. It is a fact that we are suffering from nihilism. To know oneself, one should assert oneself. No cause justifies the deaths of innocent people. Charm is a way of getting the answer yes without asking a clear question. Lying is not only saying what isn't true, it is also, in fact especially, saying more than is true and, in the case of the human heart, saying more than one feels. We all do it, every day, to make life simpler. Real nobility is based on scorn, courage, and profound indifference. Truth, like light, blinds. Falsehood, on the contrary, is a beautiful twilight that enhances every object. Some people talk in their sleep. Lecturers talk while other people sleep. By definition, a government has no conscience. Sometimes it has a policy, but nothing more. Against eternal injustice, man must assert justice, and to protest against the universe of grief, he must create happiness. There is but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide. A guilty conscience needs to confess. A work of art is a confession. Too many have dispensed with generosity in order to practice charity. Your successes and happiness are forgiven you only if you generously consent to share them. Virtue cannot separate itself from reality without becoming a principle of evil. Heroism is accessible. Happiness is more difficult. Violence is both unavoidable and unjustifiable. It is a kind of spiritual snobbery that makes people think they can be happy without money. I should like to be able to love my country and still of justice. Truly fertile music, the only kind that will move us, that we shall truly appreciate, will be a music conducive to dream, which banishes all reason and analysis. One must not wish first to understand and then to feel. Art does not tolerate reason. I was born poor and without religion, under a happy sky, feeling harmony, not hostility, in nature. I began not by feeling torn, but in plenitude. One leader, one people, signifies one master and millions of slaves. To correct a natural indifference, I was placed halfway between misery and the sun. Misery kept me from believing that all was well under the sun, and the sun taught me that history wasn't everything. All modern revolutions have ended in a reinforcement of the power of the state. When you have really exhausted an experience, you always reverence and love it. The desire for possession is insatiable, to such a point that it can survive even love itself. To love, therefore, is to sterilize the person one loves. Retaliation is related to nature and instinct, not to law. Law, by definition, cannot obey the same rules as nature. After all, every murderer, when he kills, runs the risk of the most dreadful of deaths, whereas those who kill him risk nothing except promotion. Ah, mon cher, for anyone who is alone, without God and without a master, the weight of days is dreadful. We turn toward God only to obtain the impossible. To cut short the question of the law of retaliation, we must note that even in its primitive form it can operate only between two individuals of whom one is absolutely innocent and the other absolutely guilty. The victim, to be sure, is innocent, but can the society that is supposed to represent the victim lay claim to innocence?